Yeah, I mean guilty, really guilty. I think. Maybe they were just like,
Looks a little bit lost.
Hello, everyone. We're going to get started here in a second. I want to thank everyone for coming out today on a beautiful Saturday. I know you all have other things that you could be doing today, but spending the afternoon with us here at Coho means so much. My name is Susie Kagami. I'm the Executive Director of Coho. For those who don't know about Coho, we are an arts and culture nonprofit in San Francisco, Japantown, and we are amplifying the voices of the past and the present for the preservation of Japantown far into the future. My hope is that we preserve the authenticity of Japantown, the history, and really looking at cultural identity for our folks, for our grandchildren's grandchildren. As a parent in this community, that is so important to me. As I raise my kid here, I hope that Japantown really becomes more authentic than it is today. And that you all being here today, helping us kind of celebrate these stories, will help us do that. So I applaud you all for being here. A little bit about Coho. So the Japantown Task Force is kind of an overall governance organization with 21 board members are kind of like the top EDs and stewards of our community. They are in the house today. Lori Yamaguchi is here as one of the board members. But this Arts and Culture Hub was envisioned by our community through town halls over 10 years ago, and was in one strategy report that was created back then, and then again we redid the strategy report in 2023 and got that approved by the Board of Supervisors, so that it is kind of an agreement between Japantown Cultural District and the city agencies to say we are going to work together to find solutions and to find ways to kind of move Japantown forward. So I was on staff at JTF back then, and one of the strategies was to create an arts and culture hub. And so because of my arts background, my administrative background, I'm like, I'm going to pick this one, and we're going to see what we can do with it. So we started Coho as a program at JTF in 2022, had an amazing launch party, 14 vendors, entertainers, live art, music, all Japanese American, and we're like, this is kind of something, we're onto something. So one of our values and our mission is to bring back Japanese Americans to Japantown, especially after being displaced twice. First, as most of you know, from World War II incarceration, our families were asked to pack up what they could carry and were shipped off to incarceration camps. They returned, faced a lot of racism. Many couldn't return because they had no place to return back to. But Japantown did rebuild, and in the 1970s, we got pushed out again through redevelopment. And by eminent domain, many blocks were taken from us. Over 500 businesses and residents were asked to evacuate. Us and Western Addition were the most affected by this, and it's a really sad story. And so we are here to talk about that a little bit today and talk about sort of what happened. We have some incredible people here to tell you firsthand, and we're gonna like relive history, so I'm super excited that they're here. And then we have some young storytellers of Japanese American descent that will kind of just share their love of, you know, what they do as an art form, as a storyteller. And so we're kind of bringing those people together today. We're basically bringing history alive and bringing generations together. So that really warms my heart. Yes. I will add to that this space. So Coco, again, we started in June 2022 as a launch party. 2023, we started as our own fiscally sponsored nonprofit. And then in early 2024, end of January, we got keys to this space. And it's a donated space by our landlord is US Bank below us. Because of Peace Plaza renovation, that was a community space. We don't have that space anymore, so we are opening our doors here with the help of Japantown Task Force, Japantown Cultural District, who are kind of we're stewarding the space for them, and that agreement between them and US Bank. So it's amazing to have a space. You guys know San Francisco is so hard to have space to do these kinds of things. But also, part of me, there's this little bit of like joy because this is space that was taken from us during redevelopment, right? So it's a reclaiming space. We're the only nonprofit in the mall right now. And if we can keep doing this, bring your friends, bring your family, have events here, talk to us. We're really open to having more events like this. There's many community members that we can bring in here for the next year and a half while I have the space. Please come, bring your energy, bring your love. Let's make this space an incredible space for all of us. You have a home here, so please make sure you come, enjoy, get on our mailing list, Instagram, Facebook. We just want to steward this space and bring the community together. Now, kind of rolling back to this event, we had an amazing summer intern. Her name is Jaden Villanueva. Oh my God. Jaden Villanueva. She's from Los Angeles. Can we give her a round of applause? She was part of LEAP, which is a leadership organization, API leadership organization based on nationwide out of LA. And they called and said, hey, do you want an intern this summer? Absolutely. I was part of their leadership program earlier this year, and we lucked out, and Jaden came on board, and she's been with us for 8 weeks. The first thing I wanted to share with young people, of course, is about what happened to us. Why Japantown? Why are we here? It's so proud of who I am and what I want to do, but also Coco's missions and values is to really amplify the story of Japantown and bring authenticity back. So she grabbed onto this redevelopment story, and we then partnered with Ryan Takamie, who was our MC today. He was fourth generation Chinese, Japanese, mixed race like myself. A lot of us are by fourth generation. And we partnered with Katie Kwan, who I don't see.
She had to leave.
Okay. So Katie Kwan is with Real Soul. Katie and I met when I was the executive director for AWA. She was a professor at doing Asian American Studies, and then she broke off and is following her desire right now to create curriculum for schools, because we all know we have to now teach ethnic studies in elementary and grade school, but she's doing great work creating curriculum that's actually meaningful and accurate to make sure these teachers know what they're talking about. So support her, Real Soul. You can find her on Instagram, website, and so forth. So, but the four of us, really the three of them, have been partnering together and doing an amazing job willing to tell the story, bringing folks together, outreaching to different folks. And so we have a huge, incredible program today that I'm so proud of, and bringing again, generations together, stories together, and just, I'm just really happy and proud of Jaden that she pulled this together. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Susie. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ryan Takamiya. I am honored to be your MC this evening, and that means, as the MC, I have a very important job of telling you where the bathrooms are. So really just go into the mall, turn left, that's it. That's my job tonight. I'm really excited to be here. You may or may not know me as the MC of the Cherry Blossom Festival. I'm also a writer and actor and community person myself as well. And I'm really excited to be here in this space, doing this particular event here tonight with you all. And I hope you all are excited here tonight. Who here loves Japantown? Yeah, we all love Japantown. That's why we're all here. And we're all here to learn a little bit about it, to show our love for it, to celebrate it, and to do so together. Because everything's better together. This event is called Love Letters to Japantown. Now we have a whole lineup of speakers who we're going to hear from tonight. But we wanted to get you involved as well, even if you're not a speaker, even if you're not telling a story tonight. We would love if you want to write a letter to Japantown yourself. We've even got a little station over here off to your left, where you can go and sit, write down your own little story, your own love letter to Japantown, and you can tack it on that wall right there. And if it's especially heartwarming and nice, I might even read it aloud to everybody over here. So if you want, feel free to get up and take a walk over there anytime. Or if you feel like you'd like to get, stand up and walk around to see any of the booths here tonight, please feel free to do so. Don't feel like you have to be glued to your chair. This is a community event. This is not the Paramount Theater where we have to be, really super quiet and respectful. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce to you some folks who are going to come up here, going to tell some stories, going to read some poems, and we're just going to share all about Japantown because we're here to talk about a very specific event that happened in Japantown, the forced removal of the Japanese American community. And of course, I'm not talking about the internment. I'm talking about the other one that happened later on. Now, folks, if you don't know much about redevelopment, the National Japanese American Historical Society has been kind enough to lend us some of their exhibition posters right there in the middle of the room. Hopefully some of you saw them on your way in. Please take a gander at them at some point when we have a chance. But we could get up here and we could list off facts and numbers and talk about what happened and all of that, but really the more impactful thing would be to hear, I think would be to hear from people who either have experienced it themselves, lived here during redevelopment, or who have been active in the community ever since, or who are even doing things now, feeling the ripple effects of redevelopment as we feel them today. So that's what we're going to do here today, folks. It is a combination of community folks, activists, poets, storytellers, and everybody who has some kind of connection to Japantown or redevelopment, and we are going to let their stories move us. That's the hope tonight. So without further ado, let's get started with our first storyteller / poet. I'm very excited to announce this poet and bring her to the stage. She's a good friend, and we've known each other for a very long time. This is actually the first time I think that we've actually done an event together. She's an artist. She's the artist in residence at the National Japanese American Historical Society right across the street. Folks, please put your hands together for Lauren Ito.
Shout out the organizers. And it is just, there are many familiar faces and a lot of people who have been very special in my journey and relationship with this place. So just thank you all for being here. This first poem is called Infinite Definitions of Birthright. Is it place? Is it people? Or textures? Or graves? Or lullabies caressing cheek? Or afterthought? Or contorted masks and shapes we can't bring ourselves to recognize anymore. I hitchhike towards mirages, count mile markers in what grows beside the road, who destroys it, how invasive species are named, where resilient blooms atop fault lines keep extinction at bay, and poetry becomes wills only some can inherit. Tucking affirmations beneath toes at each bend, I ground prayers for cocoon comfort and given skin, as if we were destined to belong here, after all. Also, what we can do for sake of time and sake of your hands is just hold applause until the end, and that way. Because I know also knowing like when to applaud sometimes during poetry can be a bit of a dance. So I will save everyone of navigating that dance. Okay, beautiful. I have 3 more poems to share with you all. And as Susie so beautifully and poetically opened with, I'm really excited for the ways that this space and this event contextualize the past, present, and what we're dreaming into for the future. And this is called Lessons in Love. Grandma, what was it like before the war? Silence. Do you remember where you were the day of Pearl Harbor? Silence. When did you and Grandpa first know that you didn't belong? Silence. My grandmother taught me sometimes love sounds like silence. The craft of forgetting a language of practiced protection. Let me love you until this pain only rattles in your marrow without seeping into skin. Let me love you until chosen stories evaporate from the mouths of your sons and daughters. Let me love you. Until you won't be torn into by a country that never learned how to reciprocate love. Her stubborn tongue loved and loved and loved through our questions until her last breath. Rewriting our creation stories, I excavate crusted riverbeds, weave poems from the fossils. Our artifacts must be inherited. So I swim in the ocean most mornings, and I think about oftentimes how much of a gift it is that this coast, San Francisco, and where I grew up in Seattle, also are connected to our ancestral lands in Japan. So it feels like less of a sea between us and more of a sea of us. Saltwater siren, sea crystals shimmer in my hair, born of abalone, iridescent cradle. Lulled by tides into consciousness, awakened. Moon conjures swells that polish shards, that birth sand, nudge oyster until pearl arises. We are all made of stardust, transmuted by sea, held together by water. Our power extends more than a wave, for we are ocean. And we're going to see if I can do this one off the dome. This is my last poem, and for folks, many folks know in this year the work of the incredible Janice Mikitani, whose poetry was previously very much the center of both the plaza and also our community. If folks don't know her work, I really encourage you to read it. And this last poem is in honor of her. It's called Arrival as We. Thousands of women hum in my blood, forced to play God, cradled their knives with a gentle hand, lifted gazes to the horizon, summoned air, tucked it into lap lines, a teacup, a birthmark, a prayer, for generations yet to unfurl, knowing breath is never promised, always, especially these days, always, always. Remember this, inhaling sunrise and bird song, we never arrive alone. Thank you so much.
One more time for Lauren Ito, everyone.
I just want to say too, we're working on a mural with Aaron Kimura right now that we're trying to get up by this weekend, but we couldn't. But Lauren's poetry, it will be on that mural and it'll be on that back wall, coming soon.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Thank you. In 1973, an organization was formed to combat the effects of the evictions in Japantown. That organization was called the Committee Against Nihonmachi Eviction. And our next speaker is going to be a former member of that organization called KINI. And her name is Joyce Nakamura. Let's give it up for Joyce, everybody.
Good afternoon, everyone. The story I'm going to tell today is my story as a Japanese American, as an Asian American political activist. I didn't grow up in Japantown. I grew up in Seaside, California. Seaside is a working class community between Fort Ord and Monterey, California. A lot of the retired military lived in Seaside. So there were a lot of African Americans, a lot of Filipino Americans, and working class white folks lived in my community, so it was very diverse. And my only relationship with other Japanese Americans was through the Buddhist church. And I couldn't really relate to them, you know, in terms of my own identity, you know, and I had developed, I mean, you have to understand the times. It's like the late 60s, you know, that I had, and being in this community of active African Americans, that I was really inspired by the civil rights movement and the Black Power movement, and I also learned about the camps at the same time. My parents never told me about the camps. And so that convergence kind of made me more politically aware, and I wanted to be a political activist. And in high school, I met folks who were active in Japantown, you know, and they were working again, you know, against the Vietnam War, and I said, wow, you know, I was really attracted to that. I want to come to San Francisco. So I applied to go to San Francisco State. It was the only college I applied to because I wanted to be in San Francisco and I wanted to be in Japantown because this was my identity that I was developing, right? So, yes. So the period of time was a period of time when a lot of students were coming into the community. It was just the aftermath of thorough strikes at San Francisco State. You know, a lot of my professors at San Francisco State had a relationship with the community and would say, hey, go volunteer in the community. You know, go check this out. You know, go check out Kimochi, whatever. You know, and I met a lot of people, and here is like Mickey, the next speaker, and myself. You know, I was like 20 years old here, 19. And one of the first things that I was involved in, as well as Mickey, was the Bay Area Asian Coalition Against the War. That's the Vietnam War. And that really awakened our political understanding of what was happening with the war, because we really supported the Vietnamese people as Asian Americans, because they were fighting to determine their own lives for self-determination. And, you know, as Asian Americans, we really related to that because, you know, we didn't have that kind of power. And so this is actually probably the first and only demonstration in Japantown. This is right on Post Street, you can tell. You know, so this is kind of like the beginning of my identity with this grouping of people. You know, I met people in Chinatown who were also involved in this, and then CAIN formed. And also during this time, many other organizations formed. Like I said, many Asian American students, Japanese American students were inspired by the Black Panther Party and came into J-Town and formed like Kimochi, the JCYC, you know, organizations that are for and by the community. We have the whole slogan, serve the people, just like, you know, the Black Panther Party. But that's what people did. They came here, they wanted to provide these services to the community. And that's the time period where CAIN was also born. And like, when I first was introduced to CAIN, I was just like really touched by the fact that there was such a broad support for CAIN. You know, I mean, regardless of your political background, you know, or your class standing or generations, everyone united around fighting redevelopment, about, you know, fighting erasure of our community. It really inspired me to get involved with this group and to help out, you know, folks who were facing evictions. So I wanted to talk about some of the people. At this time, redevelopment was like a city-wide phenomenon. There was redevelopment all over the city. It was in Chinatown. There was a massive redevelopment in the downtown area with the Uruguay Center. And so we were able to connect with a lot of these people who were involved in different communities. And so, like, here we have like Pete Mendelson. He was the chair of TOR, which was an organization that fought eviction from the New Buena site. And he was a merchant seaman. He was also a member of the Communist Party in USA in the 1930s. In fact, we had several members of the Communist Party in Kane as well. You know, who were like longshoremen, families were involved, you know, Nisei, you know, and people who just lived in the community, students, you know, were involved in Asian American studies. You do the next slide, please. And I wanted to talk about some of the people that were in Kane and how that really, as a young person, like I said, I was only like 20 years old, how it really inspired me to get more involved. And this is kind of like our first anniversary dinner. There were like 300 people there. Every year there are like 300-400 people at our anniversary dinners. This is Dr. Togasaki. She is a Nisei, but she was born in 1897 in San Francisco. She was one of the first Japanese American physicians in the country. She lived right on Buchanan Street, and across that other picture you saw was actually the corner of Sutter and Buchanan, where the hotel is now, and that was, we were protesting the demolition of the apartment building that was there. And so Dr. Togasaki lived right across the street, right? And she went and spoke at the Board of Permit Appeals to get a permit to demolish that building. And she went to speak out against it, you know. Here's George Ewell and Cherry Blossom Festival. George Ewell was a Republican. He was a member of the National Rifle Association. He was a member of the Nisei Fishing Club. And here George is distributing a petition to boycott Kintetsu. Kintetsu is one of the companies that built the hotel and that owned several of the properties in the center here. And so we were able to gather like 1,100 signatures that day. So just talking about like just the spirit of the people that I work with, right? We only have 2 minutes left. Okay, so this is when we had a sit-in at the redevelopment agency's office. They refused to meet with us for like 6 months, you know, and we had a committee called a Tenant Outreach Committee, and we would go door to door in Japantown every Saturday to talk about like what's going on, and we document everything and we forward it to the redevelopment agency. And they kept, redevelopment would not meet with us. We had a meeting, they didn't show up. Then finally we set a meeting and we said, we're gonna do some civil disobedience. You know, and this is Charlie Toyoka. He's a longshoreman And he got up and said, when we were planning this, he goes, sometimes you have to do something wrong to make things right. So, once again, that's the spirit of the people that we work with. Keep going to the last slide. Okay, I wanted to hear, kind of give a shout out to all the different people who supported Kane in their own different ways. Like, there was Japanese speaking, we had a bilingual newsletter. We had the Japanese speaking community was very supportive. You know, 3 of our members were in the San Francisco Chico group. We have community artists and people like Katie Kwan who would help illustrate, you know, in our newsletter and posters, and also people who would join to sing, right? So I guess. I'm sorry. Okay, all right. So I just wanted to say that I think the experience has a lot of lessons for today, even just being in this space, right, of bringing community together, right, of bringing people together from diverse backgrounds, right, bringing together who contribute in different ways. You know, like us OGs are telling our stories, right? And you know, Lauren and people are, you know, doing their poetry. Katie did her art, you know. So anyway, I think that's the thread that I wanted to end with. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joyce. That was wonderful. Thank you. This is such valuable, you know, oral history. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. One more time for Joyce Nakamura. Our next storyteller is the young man from the photo with the long hair, actually. Mickey Mora. He's also a former member of Kane. He was also on the National Coalition for Redress and Reparations. And get this, he's lived in Japantown for 48 years. So, Mickey, why don't you come on up and share your story with us? Everybody, Mickey.
Hi, everyone. I'll start by sharing with you a little bit about my background. So, I was born in Japan. I came to the United States at the age of 7. I grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where I spent from 2nd grade to the middle of my junior year. And I have to say, it's pretty rough. I used to come home, I used to get in fights, you know, coming home from school. Young kids would call me Jack, Chink, you know, go back where you came from. Things that you've even heard sometimes today. And it was very, aside from getting into fights, I felt I was very shy. You know, I was just learning how to speak English, and which I learned within a year while I forgot my Japanese. But anyway, so I was shy, and I really, growing up during that time, I always felt like a secondary citizen, like I wasn't as good as like other people. They were predominantly Jewish people. And so I kind of lived, you know, my young life that way. And things that got me out of that situation was like my father always pushing me, like most Japanese parents, pushing you to get a great education, which I think I did well. But the other thing was I was a pretty good baseball player. And that opened the door, especially in middle school and high school, opened the door to me being accepted by everybody. And so I was proud of that, but I was still shy. And there were times I felt ashamed of being Japanese, okay? But that changed because middle of my junior year, I went back to Japan. My parents and my brothers had gone back a year and a half before while I stayed. And when I went back to my homeland, I guess that's when I began to have a sense of who I was, having more pride in being Japanese. And, but I didn't want to live the rest of my life in Japan. I always wanted to come back to America. So I came back here to go to college. But even those college days, it was like a lot of fun, you know, learn things. But I wasn't really political. And it was only until I graduated, and the first job I got out of college was here in Japantown. I worked for a place called Tokyo Electronics. Okay. This is 1971. And by the time I had come to the city, the whole first phase of redevelopment was finished. That means the completion of the whole trade center. Okay. And where thousands of residents and business people were evicted. And when I came here, they were starting the second phase, which ran along Post Street up to Bush, from Octavia all the way down to Fillmore. And these were, many of the people who were in a real bad situation were people who were renting or leasing their space for business or living. Okay, there were a group of landowners called NCDC, which owned land. So they were a little bit more secure. But those people who did not have legal rights were, you know, in a tenuous situation. But until I came to San Francisco, got my job here, I didn't even know there were Japanese Americans. I mean, I didn't learn anything. I mean, there was no Asian studies and things like that. But I realized, well, community. And then all these Japanese restaurants, I could eat wherever I wanted, and you know, things that I never had the opportunity before. And as I worked there for a couple of years, but during that time, I got to meet a lot of people from the community, merchants. There was, like George was saying, a lot of students were coming in because they were wanting to find out firsthand what it was like in Japantown with redevelopment. So when I came here, there were a lot of empty buildings. People were being threatened with, you know, eviction notices, and they really didn't know what to do. And there was really, at that time, no organization that really would stand behind them and, you know, fight for what they wanted. So it was at that point that I became a member. Well, back to just before I became a member, I was also, along with Joyce, a member of the Asian Americans Against the War. And like I said, I'm never political, but the first demonstration, anti-war demonstration I went to, I got beat up by 2 cops. Just for putting my foot on the street to help another woman who was also getting beat up. But that was my political initiation to, you know, start becoming an activist. One thing about King's, we were a mass organization. Like Joyce said, every year we had 300 people, you know, at university dinners. And we were all volunteer. We relied on donations. We never took money from, you know, the government. We had fundraisers at Sakura Matsuri, things like that to, you know, sustain ourselves. For the period of 1976 to 1979, we were towards the end of the whole fight against redevelopment evictions. There were 2 buildings. One was at 1531 Sutter and 1869 Buchanan, and there was 1 block along Sutter and Laguna. And from 1976, the RDA was on their plans to demolish the buildings on that site. But they were looking at the 2 buildings that I mentioned, and they wanted to demolish those buildings and you know, build condos. So in 1531 Sutter, there were 3 tenants living there, shorted already. And then at 1869 Buchanan, there were a couple. And this was a time when RDA did a lot of dirty things. Okay? I mean, they would knock on the doors to harass the tenants, threaten them with evictions. You know, they had 30 days to get out, things like that. And throughout RDA's history in the Western Addition, there were also suspicious arson fires that happened on their property. So we wanted to make sure that these tenants felt safe. And one thing to keep in mind, we always consulted, got together with the tenants. We wanted to do what they wanted to do. And so these remaining tenants, wanted to stay, but they had nowhere else to go. So it was that time that some Kane members moved into the two buildings to make the tenants feel secure, prevent any harassment tactics of the sheriffs coming in. So that thing ended in 1979. For the first time, the city sheriffs and police came and forcibly evicted the tenants. But prior to that, we knew that the redevelopment issue was winding down. But learning from the tenants, we learned that this was the second destruction. We wanted to know more about the experience of especially the East State and East State Bucket camps. So Kane was the first organization in 1978 to initiate a pilgrimage to Tule Lake. And on that first pilgrimage, there were 6 busloads of people, mostly from San Francisco, San Jose, Sacramento, and Washington. And to this day, the Tule Lake community exists, and there's still these pilgrimages. But while most people remember or think of Kane as an anti-redevelopment organization, we were more than that, because we formed in '73, but we were a functioning organization until 1984. And during that time, aside from the pilgrimages gave us the basis for us to get into the whole redress reparations movement. And so Kane was one of the founding members of the National Coalition for Redress Reparations. Aside from that, we did other things. Well, most of the activists were busy working in the National Coalition for Redress Reparations. We did other work. We did support work for labor work. I mean, back around that time, there was a big strike at Japan Foods in Los Angeles. So we did fundraisers. We gave, collected money to support the workers in LA. And there was a small trading company here in San Francisco called Nishimoto Trading, and it was very small, but they were being underpaid and harassed and stuff. So we supported them. And lastly, I don't know if people are familiar with the Hibakusha. The Hibakusha, the survivors of the atom bomb, dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And every 2 years, the Japanese medical team would come to America, visit LA, San Francisco, to provide tests and treatment for the survivors. So how JCPA by then had helped these visits, we provided logistics, provided transportation for these people, from their hotels or wherever they were staying to the medical facility. We had a community fundraiser where we raised over $1,000 to thank the Japanese medical team for coming. So, Kane we were most known for being, radical, fighting redevelopment. We tried all courses, legal ways to fight them, but in the end, our main weapon was publicity, education, trying to get as many people to join in our movement and stop redevelopment, every step of the way. And like Josh was saying, for younger people, I think it's really hard to imagine. I think some of us, looking back, I think, wow, we're really crazy. I mean, if you think about it, even for yourself, right? Between the ages of 20 and 30, those are the most important years, right? In a lot of ways. You finish college, you want to know what you want to do with your life, right? You're thinking about having a family, buying a house. Well, there were some of us that came. Those things, I mean, for me, it wasn't that important. I wanted the time to spend trying to do outreach to the tenants, do leafleting, whatever. That was the main thing. So I worked in Japanese restaurants and, whatever, as long as I had the time. And it wasn't just me, but there were others. But happily, a lot of us who went through that, period where we sacrificed ourselves, we all came out okay. We ended up having families, financially, I think, we're all right. And as I got older, I retired as a UPS driver, and I've been retired 14 years now. And during that time, I've kind of known as a man in the store, because I have 2 dogs, and you can see me pretty much every day walking around J-Town with my dog. So thank you for letting me share this story with you. And one thing about Susie has mentioned that GoGo has a lease on this site for another year and a half. I think it's time for everyone here to get the word out, to get more, let's build up the membership here, have more events, so that a year and a half comes, maybe we'll have some power to negotiate further leases or whatever. But I think what you guys are starting today is really great. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story, Mickey. That's wonderful. It's really a great, and thank you for all your work, Mickey and Joyce, for all the fighting you've done over the years. Thank you so much. This is really a great reminder that, these things may have happened a long time ago, but the folks who were involved, the folks who were there, they're still here, they're still kicking, they've still got stories to tell. So, without further ado, we're going to introduce our next storyteller via video. He's a pillar of the community. You've probably seen him around. You can't mistake that mustache. You can see it from a mile away. Richard Hashimoto is president of the Japantown Merchants Association. He's also with the Japan Center Garage, and for many years he was also one of the leaders of the Cherry Blossom Festival. So let's take a few moments to listen to Richard.
Okay, so it's Richard Hashimoto. I'm now 65. Well, next week I'll be 66. I was born in Los Angeles in 1958, and then my father was a merchant seaman, so we traveled up and down the coast, the West Coast, and finally settled here in San Francisco in 1960. And a fixture of this community ever since then. So, like I said, Japantown, everybody knew, pretty much everybody that lived in the community, developed friendships with all the kids in Japantown, and it was a very good, exciting time. And then also redevelopment kicked in. The redevelopment came in. I just remember people from the agency visiting our house maybe once or twice a month, coming over, explaining what's going on and what's happening with the development. Imagine somebody telling you have 6 months to move, to find a place to live, and my mom and my brother crying because there was no place to go. Nothing that's really affordable at the time. It can be too, but the development came in, it was devastating. All of these properties that you see here today were sandlots, pretty much sandlots. They're left vacant for like 20 plus years. So that's another part of being locked up, was playing these sandlots. And they made a promise, VW made this promise, that we would back in the community after they acknowledged they would build new housing units. Well, they evicted us, they gave us what's called a certificate of preference, meaning that we would back in the community at below market rates for housing. But again, they never did develop anything here for 20 plus years. By that time, I had come into an adult and purchased my own home someplace also. So that eliminated or disqualified me from using my certificate of preference. If you're a Oregon homeowner, you cannot purchase a property through the program. So disqualified. happened, how it devastated this community. You know, before the war, Japantown was 60 blocks big, and then after the war, it came down to 40 blocks, and now we're down to this measly 6 blocks. We're doing everything we can to help protect it, preserve the future of this community. My vision in the future is to try to expand Japantown. So things like both, it's very important to demonstrate our culture and traditions, and to try to expand that. Hopefully, get more families interested. I'm trying to get Japanese corporations to take some ownership and say, hey, you know, Japantown, we need to do something to help Japantown. But we don't have the footprint that they need. When Japantown first opened, Tikoman was just a headquarters here in the States, the first one. Then we had Nissan, at that time it was called Datsun. Sony was the first time to go here in Japan. So I'd love to see those corporations like that having to come into Japantown, help preserve the community. So that's my long-term vision. We'll see what happens outside of that. Yeah, call to action. Just learn more about our history, incarceration, the wrongs, injustices that we've done to the Japanese Americans, and not repeat that history. Second is the development of the urban renewal era. More in depth what and how it impacted people that were forcibly evicted.
Thank you, Richard. Folks, just like it says up there, that's actually part of a longer interview that we did with Richard.
Okay, so
which you can find on our website, cohosf.org. We also invite you to sign up. If you go to our website, you can sign up for our mailing list, or you can sign up for our mailing list right here in the back at the Coho booth. We're going to take a 15-minute break for folks to get up, use the bathroom, and also to visit our awesome booths that we have around the room. I just want to take a moment to give a shout out to all the booths that we have. Actually, Kane has a booth. They brought it right over here just behind you on the right, where they are talking about the Sansei Legacy Trust Fund, so please check them out. The National Japanese American Historical Society has a booth over there as well. We have our Coho booth, along with Real Soul, which is another partner of this event tonight. Real Soul is an Asian American arts and education organization. They're giving out awesome little tiny zines that Katie herself created. So go ahead and pick some of those up at the Real Soul booth. And of course, off in the other corner there, we wanted to give a shout out to the Asian American Curriculum Project, who have come a long way and brought with them an entire library of Asian American literature that you will not find at, or be difficult to find at your local Barnes & Noble. So please check them out, buy some books, say hi. And we're going to be back here right at 6:15, and we'll start with the second half of our event with more speakers and storytellers and poets. So see you soon.